Joining me now live from South Africa, Nedbank Chief Executive Officer Michael Brown. Mr. Brown, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning from Johannesburg, Mark.
So, how are talks progressing between yourselves and HSBC?
Well, certainly the talks have been between Old Mutual PLC and HSBC, and that is just at proposal stage at this stage, so we can't be certain that it will end up in a transaction. But what we're about to kick off with now is the due diligence process.
Talk to me about the price, if you can, because you're obviously, you have a market value of around 10 billion Australian dollars. It's about 9.8 billion. And if HSBC buys a stake of up to 70%, the valuation is around $7 billion. So is that about the price you'll be looking for?
You know, from our perspective, we would have to wait for a firm offer to be put on the table before we commented on price. I don't really think it's appropriate at this stage in the deal.
But do you have an idea in your head what sort of price you think would be appropriate?
No, we don't. Clearly, we'd have to try and understand what the synergies would be in any particular transaction, what the financial implications would be, and what the cultural fit would be before we made our recommendations.
You talk about the cultural fit because many are saying that the HSBC brand will ultimately prevail over the Nedbank brand. Do you think that's the inevitable future if HSBC does buy you?
Well, certainly HSBC's pedigree, we do believe, speaks for itself. Again, we haven't had discussions yet in the process around things like brand, but we are aware that HSBC is the world's, globally the world's most valued banking brand.
Will you retain your listing, in Johannesburg? Will you keep a local chief executive?
So certainly, again, a lot of that hasn't been discussed. But if one looks at the precedent of previous transactions and what the South African regulatory authorities require, they generally do require both the listing to be retained and a South African chief executive.
So you'll keep your job?
I can't be certain that it will be me, but certainly one would anticipate one keeping a South African chief executive. I need to do what's right for my company, not necessarily myself.
Would you like to keep your job?
I absolutely would like to keep my job because I do think that this represents a compelling opportunity for our company.
It seems that OML, or Old Mutual, your parent company, did talk to other bidders. Do you know who they are? Many citing Standard Chartered. Why haven't you entered into an exclusive period with Standard Chartered?
So I think what's important is that we haven't entered into an exclusive period with anybody. The exclusivity is between our parent company, Old Mutual, and HSBC.
But are you aware of the companies that Old Mutual talked to besides HSBC?
Well, certainly there have been a number of rumours as to who they could have been. And Old Mutual was quoted yesterday as saying they did talk to other bidders, but they declined to name who they could be. Oh,
so really, you do not know the names of the other companies that were interested in you?
Well, certainly we know what the market rumours have been, but we don't know specifically how far those talks got.
There were, well, as we are aware, a couple of big banks in South Africa have formed tie-ups with Chinese banks or cooperation deals with Chinese lenders, Standard Bank and FirstRand, to name but two. Was that an option for you? Because obviously talking about the links between Africa and Asia, specifically China, maybe that would have been a clever route for you to go down. Why hasn't that materialised?
Well, certainly that could be an option, but if you look at the credentials and pedigree of a bank like HSBC and the strength of their businesses in the East, one would believe that they would equally be able to, and perhaps even more, capitalize on the trade links between Africa and the East, and certainly also between Africa and South America.
Michael, thank you for joining us today. Good to speak to you.